from Ayurvedic perspective, we look for how is their gut behaving. That's the first marker, gut health. So are they passing stools every single day, at least once, if not twice is a good marker, twice daily. And then when they eat food, there is no bloating, there is no signs of any indigestion, they don't have any heartburn, they don't feel excessively full after weight, they don't feel excessively slow after eating. Then sleep is another big marker. How do they sleep through the night? Do they feel fresh when they wake up in the morning? Do they wake up any time at night time? Do they take time to fall asleep, or do they have a lot of dreams or not? And so how they are eliminating, how they are fit. And weight is the sign of, how their body is metabolizing everything. And then how does their skin look like? Do they look bright? As well as looking into somebody's eyes. And also we have this concept of what we call vitality, how rejuvenated a person looks. Are they interested in things? Do they feel inspired to do things? Are they doing some things with their life, or they're just a lazy person, not really motivated to do anything? All of these are good signs of health, and especially of mental health and things that we can't really see, is about how are they interested in certain things. When you look into somebody's eyes, do you see life in their eyes, or they look really dead to you? Because there are people you look at and they look really, really as if there's no life in them, which is also a case of people who are depressed or low mood or sadness. You can see into their eyes and you can feel how they feel. So these are also good markers of that your skin should be brighter. It should be slightly moist. Your eyes are brighter. Your lips should be nicely, no chapping of your lips. So these are all little markers of your health.
Hi, Envisionaires. Welcome to the Envisionaire podcast. This is the podcast where we envision living our best lives by exploring everyday topics related to health, wealth, community, and love. This podcast is for information purposes only and should not be considered to be medical, legal, tax, financial, or other professional advice.
This podcast does not encourage or endorse any illegal activity.
We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liability that may arise from the information in this podcast.
The views explored in the podcast may not always be those of the host.
On today's episode, we are going to be exploring the health pillar of the podcast, as we're going to be speaking with Dr. Ashish Paul, who is an Ayurvedic physician who has been practicing for over 27 years and has been a medical herbalist for over 19 years. Dr. Ashish has extensive experience teaching Ayurveda and working with patients in India, the UK, and Paris, and is well-versed in Ayurvedic medicine and therapies, as well as Western herbal medicine. She also uses dynamic yoga, NLP, and hypnotherapy as part of her rejuvenation work with women. She focuses part of her practice on women's health and fertility, with a mission to rejuvenate women's health and help them thrive in all areas of their life. I have been so interested in exploring and better understanding the ancient practice of Ayurveda, but I hadn't been able to find the right guest to come onto the podcast. So by chance, I met Dr. Ashish at a conference a couple of weeks ago when we were sitting by chance next to each other, and the host asked us to introduce ourselves to the other person that was next to us. And I can't even remember what I said, but I discovered Dr. Ashish is an Ayurvedic practitioner, physician.
Yeah.
And so I thought that was so incredible, and what a gift and a blessing from the universe to have met. So I am so glad that we have Dr. Ashish on the Envisionaire podcast. A very, very warm welcome. Thank you for coming on to talk to us about this important topic.
You're very welcome, Nicole. And it is, yes, absolutely. The universe aligns things, So whenever we put our desires out there and our visions out there, then everything starts to come together. And then, yes, I met you, you met me. So it's wonderful. It's good to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So I think a good starting point would be, what is Ayurveda and where does it originate from?
So Ayurveda, the actual word is made up of two words. So it is a Sanskrit word, and Sanskrit is the oldest language that we have and most logical language that we have, on which the whole coding system is based on. It's Sanskrit. So Ayurveda comes from two words. Ayur means life. Ayu or Ayur means life, and Veda or Vid means to know. So it is, Ayurveda means to know life, in its entirety, to know life, not just only to know health, not just only to know health when you are not healthy. It is to know health when you're healthy, when you're unhealthy, when you're happy, when you're unhappy, your environment, your home environment, your environment outside your house, in every way. So it is, that's why we call it art and science of living. How do you live every single day? That is what Ayurveda is. It comes from Indian subcontinent, and now we don't really know the roots of it. But what we know is that we have written records of it about 3,000, 3,500 years old. And we know that it probably developed as the civilization developed, when we had when people started doing farming and stuff. And from there, when we have settled colonies, this system just started. But the recorded stuff that we have and the books that we have are about 3,500 years old.
Wow. I like the idea. I didn't know that it was made up of two Sanskrit words, life and to know. And I like that you also mentioned that it's not just about health, it's actually about your whole life. So to know life entirely. And from what I've read and my understanding, it is very holistic. So it is looking at mind, body, and spirit. Is that right?
Yes. So Ayurvedic medicine is mind, body, spirit, all of it, everything related to you as a human being. As well as we can call it almost like constitutional medicine. So now we talk so much about functional medicine, but Ayurveda is the original functional medicine, because the idea is that every human being is unique. So there is nobody like you ever on the planet. Not that it can never be repeated. This combination that you are, I am, even identical twins are not the same. So that idea that everybody is so unique, that you need something really unique to heal that person. So that's where what idea of Ayurvedic medicine is, and that it is personalized medicine. It's very subjective, it's holistic, where all of you is involved in it, not just only your body.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Fantastic. And when you talked about functional medicine, because that is something I've heard as well, and I feel like it's becoming a lot more mainstream, particularly in the last 5 years. So what is the difference between, because you mentioned functional medicine and constitutional medicine, are they one and the same? And how do they differ from Western medicine now?
Yeah, so functional medicine is taking one step ahead of, or moving forward in terms of personalized medicine. It is not fully what Ayurveda does, because Ayurvedic roots of Ayurvedic medicine is in the philosophy of the how we have 5 elements in the universe. Those 5 elements is what get manifested in the body. And so you have all these air, ether, fire, water, all the elements which make your body. So you are a representation of the cosmos. Whatever is out there in the universe, it is present in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And functional medicine is only just looking at, in much more detail, what makes a person very unique. So they are more about testing, right? So they do a lot of blood tests, which is not a bad thing. It is way forward. If we have the means to test, yes, we should do lots of testing. But it still does not talk about the energetics of it. Yeah. So whereas Ayurvedic medicine talks about the energy of a person. So you have different body mind constitutions, your personality type, which is not only mind type, it is mind and body type. So that is what is very unique and specific about Ayurvedic medicine. And then modern medicine is not subjective at all. Modern medicine is trying to pigeonhole people into just these signs and symptoms, and if you don't fit that sign and symptom, then they don't have a medication for you, which is a very, very narrow way of healing or healthcare.
Right. And so I know that, okay, well, that was really interesting. And I think we're going to go back to that, but just talking on that point about Western medicine, I know you mentioned to me that you obviously you work on Ayurvedic, you practice, you empower your clients and with the Ayurvedic traditions and try and impart that with them in their daily lives. But how do you also incorporate Western medicine? Because I know you aren't averse to Western medicine. I think you see it as almost complementary. Is that right?
Yeah. So Western medicine, when we talk about Western medicine, we are talking about drug medicine. When people take ibuprofen or paracetamol, right? They go to their GP and they get prescribed certain things. So Western medicine can almost be used as acute medicine. That's what it is. It is used for acute purposes. You have a pain, you take painkiller. That's the purpose of modern medication. Yeah. But what we have right now, we have chronic conditions. We are not in fight or flight mode. We are not being chased by animals. We are not being chased by, we are not in a war zone every single moment of our life, which used to happen a few hundred years back. We were fighting more, and they needed some acute medication like penicillin. We needed those things because we didn't have anything to fight with the infections. Now the challenge that we have is the lifestyle has become such that people are living with chronic conditions. Yeah. So that is where we need something that can work on your lifestyle, that can work on your holistically on everything about you. So that is the difference between modern medicine and how we can use it. So how I tell my patients, like I was talking about this on my live today, is that if you have an infection right now, you're in pain, go to A&E, get some antibiotics, work with that. But then look at if you have something which keeps coming back to you again and again, even if it has happened more than once, then you start looking at, okay, what is happening with my gut? What is happening with my lifestyle? What am I eating? What am I not eating? That's where it starts from. And there we can use herbal medicines. I can give herbal medicine even for acute conditions, but because pain is one of the areas where modern medication work really, really well, because you can take a painkiller for most conditions and then get some kind of instant relief. And then you should fall back on natural medicines. So that's how they work really well together.
I like that. And it feels very sometimes like I like more of a balanced approach. And I think sometimes we can hear, especially, again, in mainstream, it's very extreme. It almost feels like you have to be one or the other. They can't be, there's some sort of synergy, but this is actually a really brilliant way of seeing the synergy. I love how you explain that. You can, if you have pain immediately, of course, we have access to resources in Western medication that can help you alleviate. But the idea that if it's a chronic thing, don't just use it as a temporary Band-Aid, the medicine. Go and talk to, and would they talk to a functional medicine practitioner or an Ayurvedic practitioner?
They can talk to both. Ayurvedic medicine is much more than functional medicine because functional medicine is still very restricted to drugs and supplements. Okay, whereas Ayurvedic medicine has got therapies. We have got hundreds of types of ways of using herbs. So you can smoke herbs, you can eat them, you can apply them on your skin, you can apply them vaginally, internally, orally, anally. There are so many ways of using herbs. Whereas functional medicine is only you are detecting, you are diagnosing and diagnosing and diagnosing, and then you're giving supplements based on that, or that you are making some changes related to diet, which is not necessarily just only functional medicine thing. It is more nutritional approach. But Ayurveda combines all of this together,
Yes.
And that is why Ayurveda is a complete system. When you work with Ayurvedic system, an example I give you, somebody was talking about even a couple of days ago that blood type. So there are blood types. People eat according to their blood type. Where is the blood type coming from? It is coming from your body, mind, constitution. So when you start looking at your body, mind, constitution, you will see that blood types start to fit in your body, mind, constitution. And if you already work with Ayurveda, you're already working with body, mind, constitution, the things that you can eat, the things that you can do, the things that how you should live, how you should sleep, how you should eat, how you should do your job. So that is where Ayurveda is so descriptive, that you don't need any other thing to work with it.
Yes. And before we do a deep dive back into Ayurveda, could you maybe explain, we hear about Chinese medicine and we hear about Indian practices. And so how do they all kind of work together? And maybe can you distinguish where I think Ayurveda comes more so from like the subcontinent of India? Is that right? Whereas is it functional medicine that is more of a tradition of China, but maybe borrows from Ayurveda? How do they all kind of work together as alternative medicine practices?
So functional medicine is a modern phenomenon. It has been perpetuated in America, and it
Oh,
is
okay.
just, I think some doctors who are looking at health and they're thinking, okay, one model doesn't fit everyone because it shouldn't. And they started then thinking more into what more specific things we need to know about someone to be able to give them a very specific medication. For that, you need to test their gut. For that, you need to test their blood. So that's where functional medicine is coming from.
Okay.
Chinese medicine is very similar to Ayurvedic medicine, and we know this. This is historical, so I'm not making this up. But Chinese medicine comes from Ayurvedic medicine. This is via what we used to call Silk Route. There was a Silk Route. Chinese silk used to come to India, so there was Silk Route via Kashmir and going into India. Through that, how they took away Ayurvedic information and then used it in their own cultural. So it kind of developed similar times, but we know that Ayurvedic medicine is older than that. And that is why Chinese medicine is very similar to Ayurvedic medicine. They have five, what is it? 5 elements as well. They have 2 of the elements which are different, and then they use herbs. They also talk about Zen, which is special arrangement. They have a body of martial arts, which we have martial arts in Ayurveda as well. So it's very similar. So it comes out of Ayurvedic medicine. And we also know that Greco-Roman medicine, out of which the modern medicine comes out of, that also comes out of Ayurveda. So Ayurveda is it's the parent root medicine of all the medicines.
Wow, great. Fantastic. That is helpful because I did not know that. And now I feel like I have a good starting point for my own journey with Ayurveda. So thank you. When we were talking about the 5 elements and this complete system, can we go over again those? I know you mentioned the 5 elements, but can you explain how they manifest in the body?
Yeah, sure. So we have, according to Ayurvedic philosophy, and Ayurveda is based on few different philosophies, according to which there is what we call the yin and the yang in modern sense, if you want to know it. So it is purusha and prakriti. So purusha is the male factor or the male energy, and prakriti is the nature, the female energy, and they come together and they manifest the whole world. And then we have 5 elements, which is ether, air, fire, water, and earth. And those 5 elements combined together gives us the constitution. So we have 3 constitutions, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. And Vata is air and ether, Pitta is fire and water, and Kapha is earth and bit of water in there as well. So that is how the universal energy comes into how it is manifested in our body. So what else were you asking?
I think that's fantastic because I think it would be really interesting to know, for example, like how when we're assessing our own body and our own wellness and our own well-being, I do think that we can intuitively know when something's off. We intuitively understand when things feel out of alignment physically, mentally, spiritually. So how does that look in terms of, like, if you are obviously an Ayurveda physician, and so if you have someone in front of you, what are you looking for? What symptoms? If they come to you and say, I feel bad, what are you looking at, and how do these elements come into your, analysis, if you will?
Yeah, so each element has its own qualities, right? So all 5 elements have certain distinctive qualities. Like ether is something we can't see, but we know it's everywhere. So ether can be equated to space. And we know we have space in everything. In our blood vessels, we have space in our heart, we have space in our body. Our body is rather 99.999% is space. So that is the ether element. Ether is cold, it is imperceptible, you can't really catch it. It is very subtle. Then we have air. Air has a little bit more movement. So you can't really see air, but you can feel air, right? So you can feel when it is windy outside. You can feel it through your skin, through your senses. And air is cold, it is dry, it moves really fast. So anybody who has got air element more in them, or anybody who moves very fast, talks very fast, eats very fast, thinks very fast, they have more air element in them. Yeah. Similarly, when somebody comes to me and they talk about, I've got this red rash, my eyes look really red, you know that it's a pitta situation where they have got so much heat in their system that heat is kind of flowing out, it is spilling out. So this is how you look at the symptoms, and you are then categorizing what kind of element they have in them. Right now, what element is out of balance, and then how can we bring it back into balance?
And so what sort of practices would you normally consider? What therapies, what sort of holistic approach would you take if someone is out of balance? What are you thinking about? I know you mentioned you do some yoga sometimes, NLP, hypnotherapy. Are those the modalities that you use?
Well, we first you talk about the person's whole life and lifestyle. What are they doing? And diet is the main thing. So what are they eating, right? And diet is not just only diet. Diet is also about dietary habits. And what are they cooking? How do they cook? What pots and pans they use? What kind of heat they are using? And how do they sit to eat, or they don't sit to eat? Do they sit with somebody or not with somebody? All of this is making a difference to how they are digesting that food. Yeah. And in Ayurvedic medicine, your health is dependent on your digestive health. Your health is dependent on everything comes from your gut. Every single health issue comes from your digestive health. And your digestive health, your gut can be a slow gut, it can be a fast gut, it can be an inflamed gut. So that is again dependent on your constitution. So if you are a kapha person, you have a very slow gut because food is digested very slowly. So you need to then take a lot of ginger, a lot of spices to perk it up, because system is very slow. It has got too much phlegm in it, or it has got too many of dampening humors in it, or it has got too much water in it, and that's why the system moves very slow. As compared to somebody who has got a lot of fire, then we need to use cooling things. We need to use cooling foods. We need to use ghee, for example, to cool their body and their system internally. So this is how you first assess. First thing is always about diet. And I spend most of my time talking about how to eat, really, because the diet has moved so far away from what human beings were eating earlier. But it is every single thing that you are and how you are cooking your food makes a huge difference. So we talk about that. And then it is, how do you live your life? How do you sleep? What time do you sleep? Who do you sleep with? What clothing do you wear? What bed sheets do you use? Because it might be making a difference to the health condition or symptoms that you're showing me. So it's very detailed. I mean, for the dosha assessment, we have a form now, and it's a very detailed form. My form is not like very short form. It has got all the symptoms under the sun on it, because I really want to know a lot of everything about you as a person.
Yes.
And then based on that, once we have the assessment, I know what body mind constitution is there. I know your tendency. What are you more prone to? What are your weaknesses? What are your strengths? For example, somebody who rang me, and she was inquiring about her daughter, actually, and she said, her daughter has she was looking to do some colonic treatments for her, which we do in Ayurvedic medicine. And she was mentioning few things, and then she said, I want my daughter to come and see you, but she may not mention, but she is bulimic. And I said, everything that you're mentioning, it is actually, all of it is sign of bulimia. And especially constipation. And when somebody has got gut health issues, there is a sign that person is not eating very well or is bulimic. She said, really? How did you know that? And so, it's from the symptoms that somebody is mentioning. And also, if I know your dosha, I know so much about you, almost everything about how your mind is actually working.
Yes. And sorry, what is dosha for people who don't know what it is?
So dosha means fault. It is your current makeup of your body and mind. What is your current state? What is your current balance? It is also called Vikruti or Prakriti. Prakriti, like Prakriti, it's nature, what is inherently your nature. And Vikruti is what is the current state of it. Yeah. So the current state, if you are very healthy, may be equivalent to your inherent state, that you're very fit and healthy. So there may not be no difference between the two. But most people are in vitiated state. They are in a state where it is not balanced.
Mm-hmm. So what are some markers of someone who is healthy? I know you said, like, obviously they feel fit and healthy, but are there certain markers that you would say, yeah, tick, 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 those people are are healthy? Is it like weight? Is it how their skin looks? What are some things that you look for?
So from Ayurvedic perspective, we look for how's their gut behaving. That's the first marker, gut health. So are they passing stools every single day, at least once, if not twice, is a good marker, twice daily. And then when they eat food, there is no bloating, there is no signs of any indigestion, they don't have any heartburn, they don't feel excessively full after weight, they don't feel excessively slow after eating. Then sleep is another big marker. How do they sleep through the night? Do they feel fresh when they wake up in the morning? Do they wake up anytime at nighttime? Do they take time to fall asleep, or do they have a lot of dreams or not? And then that and elimination, as I already mentioned, so how they are eliminating, how they are fit. And weight is the sign of, how their body is metabolizing everything. And then how does their skin look like? Do they look bright? As well as looking into somebody's eyes. And also we have this concept of what we call vitality, how bright, or how, what's the word? How rejuvenated a person looks. Are they interested in things? Do they feel inspired to do things? Are they doing some things with their life, or they're just a lazy person, not really motivated to do anything? All of these are good signs of health, and especially of mental health, and things that we can't really see is about how are they interested in certain things. When you look into somebody's eyes, do you see life in their eyes, or they look really dead to you? Because there are people you look at and they look really, really as if there's no life in them, which is also a case of people who are depressed or low mood or sadness.
Mm-hmm.
You can see into their eyes and you can feel how they feel. So these are also good markers of that your skin should be brighter. It should be slightly moist. Your eyes are brighter. Your lips should be nicely, no chapping of your lips. So these are all little markers of your health.
And is one too old to start Ayurveda practices? Because I think sometimes some people think I'm just too old. It doesn't matter anymore, right? Is there, or would you encourage, if we had someone who was like in their 70s or 80s listening, and they're like, I want to do this. It's not too late. I hope not. Is it?
It's never too late to start being healthier and to learn about your health and well-being, and to learn about what is your constitution like. No, there is no age for this.
Okay. And they can still, like, there's no, obviously it's, in my mind, it's always better to start, obviously, as soon as you can, right? And presumably if you incorporate a lot of these practices, especially the vitality, in my mind, I think, oh, that's probably really good for longevity, right, of your life.
Yeah.
Because longevity is not just about, right, it's about aging well. And so, but it's never, I guess what you're saying is that it's never too late to start an Ayurvedic practice or Ayurveda.
It's never too late. You can still do a lot with your health at whatever stage it may be. Yes, certain things we may not be able to reverse back. If you are at certain age and you have got a lot of damage, cellular damage due to diabetes or cardiovascular health, I may not be able to reverse all of it. But if you have got certain years ahead of you, we can use, Ayurvedic remedies and Ayurvedic way of living. You can still start. But of course, it makes a difference. The earlier you start, the more longer you live in a healthier way, the better health it is going to be, for sure.
Amazing. I'm sure you've convinced many listeners that they want to start adopting an Ayurvedic practice. You have for me. What practical steps can we start taking on a daily basis? Is there anything that we can start even tomorrow morning, like a short morning practice or routine, something?
Yes, so we have in Ayurveda, which is called optimal daily practice. So, how should you live your day in an optimal way, right? What time should you wake up, eat, pass stools, exercise, and all of it? And this again is dependent on your constitution, and now it is also dependent on your lifestyle, what kind of lifestyle you have. If you are someone whose job starts at 6 a.m. in the morning, you possibly are not going to have time to exercise in the morning. So accordingly, it will adjust a little bit, but it is about knowing to start at the right time, then go and pass stools, and then you should exercise. And once you are woken up from that time, within 2 hours, you should have your breakfast and eating what kind of breakfast you should eat according to your body, mind, constitution. Again, everything in Ayurveda is according to your constitution, but eating breakfast at the right time and consistently at the same time, and then having lunch, making sure that between 12 and 2, you have your lunch. Again, in the evening, should you have dinner or not, depending on what are your energy requirements, what is your weight like, and if you are have a sedentary kind of lifestyle, then adjusting it accordingly so you have healthier, smaller meal in the evening, maybe not excessive amount of meal. And then how should you then retire, going into bed and doing some kind of meditation and mindfulness practice at that time. And everything that we want to do fitness wise is more of a first half of the day practice. It should always be exercise, breathing exercise, any kind of yoga, which is when you're trying to wake your body up, is first half of the day. From an Ayurvedic point of view, we don't do exercise after 3-4 o'clock. It is not time for body to exercise. It is time for body to be more restorative, and whatever you want to do at bedtime, it is just very, very slow breath work that you can do, and then going into sleep and making sure that you are not using anything which is excitable, because you are trying to calm your nervous system down, not really excited in the evening. So that's the kind of routine which we call dincharya. And it is something daily routine, daily optimal routine for your body, mind, constitution. And then you live every day like that.
I love that. I love those universal sort of principles that we can all start implementing or start to try to incorporate into our daily lives. So
Yeah.
thank you. That's really helpful. For listeners who now want to take the next step, and obviously reaching out to someone like yourself is a great step. Do you also have any books that you recommend or any resources that you think someone who really wants to start doing their own education towards this, what would you recommend?
Yeah, sure. They can also check my website. So we have got some information on it, and there are other Ayurvedic practitioners. I think most of the books that we have in Western world, they are very superficial books because of the language barrier as well, because they are, translated from Sanskrit and Hindi. One of my teachers, Dr. Vasant Lad, his books are amazing. So he has written a lot in English, and because he also practices in America, so his language has become like that, which is wonderful to read, and it is easy to read it. So people can start with his books. There's one basic book he's written, Fundamentals of Ayurveda. So people can start with that book, Dr. Vasant Lad, and you can easily find his name online. Yeah.
Fundamentals of Ayurveda. Is that right? I'll put the links in the show notes as well.
Yeah.
And when we talked about practitioners, finding a practitioner, what are the things that one should look for? Because, obviously, unfortunately, sometimes in certain spaces, there are people who claim to be experts, and, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. And the question is, how can listeners say, okay, these are the benchmarks I'm looking for in my Ayurvedic physician?
Yeah. So Ayurvedic, so there is demarcation that is in all holistic practices, all holistic medicines and therapies, is that you have a practitioner who can diagnose and prescribe. And then there are therapists who can do the therapies. So practitioner like me, who's qualified in Ayurvedic medicine, can diagnose and prescribe. Whereas the Ayurvedic therapists are not supposed to diagnose and prescribe herbal medicines. So they can talk about diet, lifestyle, and they can do therapies under my supervision or practitioner like me. And from a practical point of view, there are a couple of Ayurvedic associations. You can look on their pages, and it then mentions these are Ayurvedic doctors, these are Ayurvedic therapists. And because the training is very different, and Ayurvedic it's like difference between doctor and nurses. Not to say that nurses don't have their place. They have their own wonderful space. What they can do, even doctors can't do. Same here.
Yes.
So therapists have their own place, but they are not. They can't prescribe and diagnose. So that's what you're looking for, an Ayurvedic doctor. And of course, you can always request to check credentials of the practitioner you're looking at, whether they're insured or not. Like I am insured, so by holistic insurance, so that covers everything. And and my certificates are available on my website as well. So anybody who wants to look, they can check.
And so yes, so essentially you're looking at certifications, benchmarks from reputable Ayurvedic institutions. Yeah. I think even if you can't understand that, because some of those you can't understand, but if they have insurance, that is that they are safe to practice. That is what you are looking for. Yeah, perfect. Amazing. That's really great. Well, I mean, this has been amazing. And I'm so excited. I can't wait to start my own Ayurvedic tradition, like my own practice. So thank you. We are now on to the Envisionaire questionnaire segment of the podcast. Okay. So this is a fun feature of the podcast where we ask guests to reflect on their past, present, and future. It's kind of just 3 questions. So are you ready, Dr. Ashish?
Yes. Ready. Excited.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, good. So looking back towards your past, if you could give your 15-year-old self any advice, what would it be?
15-year-old. Oh my God. Oh, I always listen to these questions and I've never answered them. I would say carry on, actually. The way you're carrying on is fine. So just carry on doing what you're doing. Because I think my 15-year-old self was much better.
Okay, beautiful. Love that. Reflecting in the present moment, if you could have dinner with anyone in the world, who would it be?
Oh, wow. Okay, so this is a little bit emotional. So my husband passed away in 2020. And if we could have dinner as a family one more time where he is healthy and well, that's what I would love, with my children and him.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I didn't know.
That's okay.
I'm so sorry. But yeah, yeah, it's always one of those things where, like, my father passed away also in 2021, January 2021. And, I think the first couple of years, you're still just, it's grieving, you're processing it. And then recently I had the same thought. I thought to myself, I've always heard people say, oh, I would just love to, have one more day, one more afternoon with that person. And I actually recently felt that, which was really, so it is. Yeah. But they're with us. Yeah. They're with us.
Yes, yeah. They are there. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you. What's one goal that you would like to achieve in the next 5 years?
Next 5 years, actually, one of those years is already passed because my goal started last year. So, because I turned 50 last year, so my goal is by the time I'm 55, so in another 4 years, I would like to have established our clinics all around the world. So we already work internationally, but I really want other clinics to adopt our method and use it around the world. So that's my big goal.
Well, we're going to be cheering you on, and I can't wait to see that. You should look at Canada, because we do have some listeners in Canada as well. So I'm sure they would welcome that.
Yes, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much again, Dr. Ashish, for being on the podcast. You have been such a star, and I'm so grateful that I met you. And thank you to the universe for coming into my life. If people want to connect with you, follow you, I know you're active on Instagram. You regularly do lives with lots of information. How can they connect with you?
So Ashish Veda is our brand or clinic name. Ashish Veda, just like Ayurveda. So they can find me on all the platforms: TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook. We have a Facebook groups as well, and Instagram and YouTube.
Fantastic. And I'm going to put all the links in there, and also your website as well, which is full of resources. And
Yes.
I just want to say thank you again so much. And I'm sending you lots of love.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Nicole.
If you want to see more videos like this, make sure you hit subscribe and check out this video here.